The world of electric cars still feels like work in progress. For example, when you go to a charging station, sometimes you don't even know if it's functioning until you get there. Sometimes you get there and it's blocked off, like I've had to experience many times. Also, you get charging stations that sometimes are just so slow that it's just so useless to use. And then you have the car side. You have some long range vehicles, but you have to pay extra for those. Or you get to where you need to go and there's no entertainment to keep you busy whilst the car is actually charging. This is the Polestar 2 and I've been driving it for about a week or so, and this is my review. Let's check it out. The Polestar 2 design is actually one of my favorites when it comes to car designs and electric vehicles in general. I love the boxy look. The ride height is great for visibility. I love the alloys as well, and it's got some of the Volvo's DNA written all over it. On the front, you can walk around and get a different angle each time and get a different feel for what the car looks like from different sides each time. The slim profile pixel LED headlights looks futuristic. They also feature active bending and cornering, so again, good for visibility. The fake grille on the front, which also hides the sensor with the looks and the color, is very subtle alongside of that Polestar logo that you see just up on the bonnet. I love the fog lights placement, looks nice as well. On the side, I love that leading line when you look at it from the back all the way to the front. And when you look at it from the front, it also leads to the back and you see that slightly wider wheel arch that looks really nice as well. There's an optional 20-inch alloy with Continental Premium Contact tyres as part of the 5000 performance pack, which also means you get special edition seat belts in gold to match and gold brake calipers. You have gold valve caps as well, combined with that Polestar-designed Brembo brakes, and Ohlins dual flow valve dampers, which by default feels stiff, so you might have to get that adjusted for a smoother or softer ride. You get 22 suspension settings, which I believe you shouldn't attempt to do yourself. You're better off having Polestar do it for you. When you look at all the extras that you get for that £5,000, I ask myself, is it actually worth the extras though? Actually, in my opinion, I think no. I've driven the standard edition and the experience is just as premium. The gold detailing is great, but maybe not on the seatbelts for my preference. The back of the Polestar 2 performance is also quite distinctive and probably my least favorite part of the car design in general. The long tail light emphasizes its boxy shape and looks very Volvo, but I do like the subtle animation that you get when you unlock the car. The wing mirrors are very minimal too, adding to both its good looks and functionality with blind spot warning lights. One way to describe the Polestar 2 exterior design is minimalistic and subtle. In fact, if you're driving another car and you see one of these Polestar 2 performances in your head mirror, it doesn't look jarring at all. It actually looks really welcoming. Unlike some of the electric cars on the market right now, which doesn't look that fancy at all. Next, let's talk about space. The Polestar 2 is an odd one when it comes to the space available. Boot space is no issue at all. You have a big 405 litre space, including a 41 litre space under the floor. And we were able to fit a folded Mate X electric bike in there, which if anyone's seen one of these, they're quite hefty and big. We were also able to fit my backpack in there at the same time. If you fold the rear seats, you get 1095 litres in total. The charging cables can be stored in the front or the front boot, where you get 35 litres of space. Where things get tricky though is when you get inside. The big center console area is so big that the driver's side feels very tight. Where the knee is as well is not soft, so when you drive in for a long period of time, it gets uncomfortable. And once I get my seating position right, the passengers at the back will also struggle with their knee space. Headroom is perfectly fine as I'm 5'10"ish, so it's no issue whether as a driver or passenger. Okay, onto the interior design, which looks like an IKEA store on wheels. The minimalist design continues here inside the car. The seats are vegan and you get a good mix of fabric, wood and plastic, although the plastic steering feels a little bit less premium than the rest of the car, which also in comparison to some of the cars I've driven before, it's not that premium in my opinion. The headrest is actually useful. It actually supports my head and neck while driving, and even with a tight space, it's still easy to get in and out of the car. On the passenger side, there's a gap by which you should be careful not to drop your phone down there, which John, who was filming with me, quickly found out. It was hard to get his phone out of there. If you look up, you have a big panoramic roof, and go further towards the front center console, you have a Polestar logo projected to the ceiling, which is pretty cool and very subtle. The minimalist look continues with the gear shifter. I love the sculptured look, and ahead of it is a wireless charging area, which kept giving me errors when I was trying to charge my iPhone 12 Pro. For some reason, it kept telling me to clear the area, which there was nothing there. You also get two USB-C ports on the front and two at the back as well. I love the forward-thinking attitude here with two USB-C ports, but I would have loved to have one standard USB-A port and one USB-C port here, because a lot of people still use the old USB cables. Before you look up to the big center display, you have a rotary dial for adjusting volume, and you can also press it to play, pause your music. And to the left of it are the screen heating buttons, so you can defrost your screen or clear fogs. And to the right, you get your hazard light button, which I often use to say thank you to people most of the time. At the center is an 11-inch iPad style display in portrait orientation, and I prefer this to the Tesla Model 3's horizontal orientation. It's very responsive, and with Google fully baked in, you can control most of the settings, most of the things in the car just using your voice. As you can see on screen right now, I'm asking a question and straight away it pumps back the answer back to me, which is pretty cool. That's something that you don't really get in most cars these days. The user interface is very easy to use and it's so simple to navigate as well. You even get a full user manual loaded on there, which is searchable, so you can search for different things that you're looking for, if you get lost trying to operate something, you can easily just search for it and it's there. Tapping the car icon up top, you can adjust the drive, change assist settings, check on your charge settings and more. On the drive menu, you can adjust how you want your steering to feel. I like to have mine really firm because soft steering just feels odd to me. But you can also set it soft, so when your arms are tired, you can use it for that. Under assist, you have some safety features like adaptive cruise, driver alert, collision avoidance, lane keep aid and road sign information. Wherever you see the 3 dots in the corner, it usually means you can delve in further to change the settings. Charge is very straightforward. You can set a charge limit to preserve your battery's lifespan, and under more, you can see the car status like your tire pressure monitoring, service information, interior and exterior lighting settings, mirror settings and wipers. What I really like here though is that unlike Tesla's user interface, I don't have to control everything just using that center console. I can still control my wipers using the stalks and so on, which is really good. Something on the Tesla that I didn't like is that you have to control everything using that center console. Pressing the car icon takes you back to maps, and the 4 squares reveals a 4-segment view where you can add icons based on what you want them to be, where you want them to be. So top left could be work-related apps, for example, like maps, and bottom right can be all your entertainment applications. You can also swipe down on the screen to see your recent notifications and clear them. One app that's worth looking at is driver performance. This is where you can see how your driving is affecting energy consumption and perhaps adjust accordingly. Under settings, you can change a few things like network settings, and under sound, for example, you can customize the sound experience to make sure you're fully immersed thanks to the Armour Kardon premium sound with 13 speakers, so 600 watts, including air-powered subwoofer. The sound system is one of the best I've listened to. The rear passengers complained they couldn't hear the sound very well as clearly as we did at the front, which resulted in me turning up the volume at the front, which was too loud for me, but alright for the people at the back. One way to mitigate this though is to change where the sound actually goes in the car. But what happens then is you have to still turn it up to hear at the front, so maybe it's a bit of a catch-22. When you pop the Polestar 2 into reverse, you get a 360-degree surround view camera with parking sensors and rear auto braking to help you park your car safely. You don't get what Tesla offers in terms of dash cam or remote activation for the camera for when you're away from the car for safety, but it does the job for parking. You get DAB+ for music, and you can play music via smartphone using Bluetooth connectivity as well. I couldn't see any support for Apple CarPlay, but Polestar says this will come mid-21 via over-the-air updates. Android Auto will be pointless in this because it's already got Google Play baked in. You can download Spotify and log in on there as well, so you can actually listen to music directly on Spotify using the interface. You have access to a limited amount of Google Play Store applications. They are the ones that have been passed through the system to make sure that they're actually okay for driving. This is a little disappointing though, because you don't get Netflix like you do in the Tesla for when you're charging your car to keep yourself entertained. But in my case, I just had to wait for the car to steam up and I was playing Noughts and Crosses on the ceiling. You do get lifetime OTA updates and Google service connectivity included for 3 years. And let's not forget, you also get climate control option at the bottom of the screen too. In fact, at the point of this video, Polestar released a new update, which means more longer range, better safety, and also you're going to be getting more OTA updates over a long period of time. The 12.3-inch driver instrument cluster is also digital, so you can change the view to show maps, for example, and it's also where you can see vital information like speed, range. It's also where you can see when your adaptive cruise control is on. Again, this is great because I hated having to control everything using that big display in the center on the Model 3. Onto the performance and drive experience. The Polestar 2 performance here has 78 kWh battery that powers 2 electric motors, and it's also 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive with one motor placed on the front and the other placed on the back axle. Each electric motor has 150 kilowatts output, altogether giving you 300 kilowatts or 408 horsepower and a 660 Nm torque. And if you've been in an electric car before, you know that you get that instant torque, which means when you put your foot down, you just feel it push you to the seat, and it's a great experience actually. You're also looking at 0 to 62 miles per hour in 4.7 seconds, which is less than what you'd get in the performance version of the Model 3, and a top speed of 127 miles per hour. Compared to the Model 3, you don't feel the torque as much as you do in the Model 3, although that could be down to the Polestar 2's weight. Polestar quoted 292 miles combined range and a 348 miles city range, both WLTP rating. But in the real world, a 70% charge got me 190 miles, which isn't too bad in the city, but a trip from South London to the New Forest left me with a bit of range anxiety and extra planning and 1 hour of waiting for a 50 kilowatt charging station to get me back to 80% before heading back to London. That's also how long it took to get me from 20% to 80%, which isn't too bad in the grand scheme of things, but it's an hour that I didn't need to waste. If I had super fast charge station, maybe it'll be a bit faster, but 50 kilowatts is still decent. The Polestar 2 comes with regenerative braking or regen braking, which you can also switch off as well, but I'd say leave it on, and it supports AC up to 11 kilowatts with 1 or 3 phase. Onboard charger DC up to 150 kilowatts is supported as well. For range though, the Model 3 long range version is still the one to beat when it comes to the electric vehicle range. Driving experience or ride experience is a mixed bag in the Polestar 2, in that it feels smooth on the motorway and comfortable. It's quiet, you don't get much road noise, and you don't get that whiny electric motor sound that you get in a Prius, for example. Where is no match for the Model 3 though, is driving around the city and going over speed bumps and potholes. Cornering is fine too, although you feel the car's weight shifting if cornering too quickly. Okay, conclusion. The Polestar 2 price as standard is £49,900. And this version here is £56,800 with all the extras. Having driven the performance and standard version of the Polestar 2, I'd say go for the cheaper one if you're trying to save money. With that costing less than 50k though, you still qualify for that £3,000 government grant in the UK. And if you buy it as a business, for business use, you can also qualify for benefit in kind tax savings. Charging though is still an issue for me with electric cars in general. If you can find a 150 kilowatt super fast charger station, you can be done in 30 minutes. Find yourself a fast 50 kilowatts charger, you can add an additional hour to your journey, and at home you're looking at 12 hours to go from 0 to 100% with 7 kilowatts hour charging station, and standard 3-pin would take 24 hours. Here's a hot take though, if you're still watching up until this point of the video. What I think Polestar should do is they should reach out to Google and actually work with Google, so Google can actually install a super fast charging station around the country and link them up with Google Pay, and also maybe put a chip in there, so when you get to those stations you can just plug it straight into your car. You notice that it's your car, and it also takes payment directly from your Google Pay account. What other thing you can do with that though is Google can also add every charging station to the mapping system, which is already one of the best out there, if not the best out there, and they can actually go furthermore by adding extra information like the 40 charging station, if it's in use, if there's another electric vehicle closer to that charging station than you are, so it can navigate you elsewhere. Again, it just makes that whole experience just seamless and just makes your journey a lot better. Even if the pricing is somewhat similar, the Model 3 long range offers more range and is also more comfortable around town. You also get access to Tesla's supercharger network, and you can have a lot more fun inside with Netflix, YouTube, games, and some funny apps as well that you can actually use, like the farting one. Polestar 2 is covered by a 3-year 60,000 mile warranty versus the Tesla's 50k miles or 4 years. You also get 100,000 miles or 8 years for the battery versus the Model 3's 120,000 miles coverage. Also, I'm yet to come across a really good self-driving technology like that of Tesla's. In the future, Polestar might come up with cheaper versions of the Polestar 2, but until then, this is what we have here. Right, so that's it for my experience with the Polestar 2 performance. As always, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If there's anything I can do, I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. In the meantime, make sure you smash that like button, share it as well, and hit the bell notification so you'll be one of the first people to know every time there's a video up on the channel. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.